Hello to all our friends in YouTube land. I'm Joe with Gramophone, and we're mighty glad that you're able to join us this evening. We're joined by our good friend Nick Brown, the Vice President of Marketing at SVS. Nick, how you feeling tonight?
I'm doing excellent, Joe. Very excited to be joining Gramophone live here for my second run with the broadcast.
That's right. We did this about a year ago, and it was about a year ago, right before we did our big SVS event. And before we go any further, I want to just say to everybody that if you live anywhere near Maryland, we sure hope that we can see you next Tuesday, the 29th, at our Columbia store, because I think, Nick, we've got somewhere around 170 people already signed up for the event. And we're looking forward to it because we've got some really fun things we're going to show and play for people, and some wild gifts we're going to give away too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Gramophone always rolls out the red carpet, and we are beyond excited because not only are we going to be able to play some of our favorite music and movie demos and talk a little bit about home theater and hi-fi, but we are giving away a $10,000 home theater surround sound system, the biggest system we've ever given away at one of these events. So kudos to you guys for stepping up with the big screen TV and the receiver, full 5.1 SVS system. So somebody's going to be walking away pretty happy that night.
Yes, and oh my gosh, Nick, we're getting all kinds of. This is a hello from New Jersey from Gregory. We've got Steve saying play something awesome on the sound system. Some classic Black Sabbath would be appropriate. Ozzy passed away this morning.
Yeah.
Fat Tony says hi from England. We've got from Lansing, Michigan. Looks like Medieval. Somebody's tuned in from Australia, which is awesome. So we've got people shouting in from all over the place already, Nick.
Love that. I think we have a screenshot of the event. Charlie behind the scenes wants to pop that up here. We have a lot of fun at these events, just so you know. This is nothing about like an SVS infomercial. It's much about, people who are like-minded, who are just total appreciate great sound, get together and, just enjoy some of the content that we've curated to showcase some of the attributes of our speakers and subwoofers, but as much to just hang out and be with like-minded people who have a passion for this stuff. And, we have so much fun going around the country doing these.
I know you guys enjoy it, but I can tell you that our customers really enjoyed it last year too. It was the first one we had ever done with SVS. And, just the format is well organized to give people some home theater, some 2-channel, some subwoofer experience. I think those of you who are signed up already are really going to enjoy it. If you haven't signed up and you'd like to, you can just go to gramophone.com and you'll see right in our banner up above, click here to sign up for the. Okay.
I got you now, Joe. I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you.
All right, wonderful. I missed about 30 seconds of what you just said, but
can you hear me now?
I got you loud and clear.
Okay, it looks like we had a problem with a mic dying, so sorry about that. I don't know how we managed to have one that was low, but no problem. So now hopefully everybody can hear us again. What I was saying, Nick, was it's just a pleasure to be able to do these things with you. So thanks again for joining us, and thanks for stepping up to the plate. We really appreciate it.
Well, we have a ton of fun. And, I will say about these events, the in-person events specifically, and the live streams, they're like part of our DNA. They really are. We were doing the live events pre-COVID, and then obviously we had to kind of hold back on those. And, we started our audiophile happy hours, which were, about monthly get-togethers where we just answer people's questions, do giveaways. and have some fun. And I think, having that level of availability for your community and just being able to have those direct communications, it means so much to us. And, Gary, our CEO, always jokes, it's like, we're the rock stars with it, just, without the fans, but we also get to be the roadies too, because we get to go and set up and do all this stuff. So I've learned a ton from just meeting a bunch of people. And it's a real blast to be able to take this show on the road, I guess you could say, whether it's virtually or in person.
Well, I'm glad you guys dig it as much as you do. Having worked for a lot of manufacturers in my career and spent 6 years at retail before that, it's just so obvious that some companies are much more customer service focused than others. And SVS, of course, does a great job for us in terms of bringing the quality of product at the price points that you do. But we just love it that it's a customer service centric organization. When I reach out to you guys myself just for a little help on something, you're always Johnny on the spot. You and Ken and Gary and Larry, you guys do a great job at the events, but in general too. And I guess I want to just start off by inviting you to talk a little bit about sort of your corporate ethos, because clearly you guys are trying to go for the part of the market that really wants the sound quality you can get from a $50,000 speaker or a $100,000 home theater, but you don't charge in that general price point. So if you can just kind of talk about your company ethos for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you kind of nailed it right there. Our mantra is really to bring a level of world-class performance that far exceeds what you would typically find at the prices that we run in. And that extends from what you would consider, I guess, our entry level, which is SB1000 Pro and our Prime series. But when you have those products, you're not feeling any sense of a compromise, as far as what you're getting from a sound quality experience. And then it works all the way up through our flagship Ultra Evolution and 17 Ultra Revolution subwoofers, which, we've now got two completely new technology platforms with those products. And we'll bring that technology down to lower prices. That's really how we do our product development is bring the best technology we possibly can for the price, and then make it less and less expensive. And then the other part, what you were saying about our customer service, it's something we absolutely take very, very seriously. I mean, our company was built, I guess you could say, kind of on the forums. Like, we were an internet direct company to start with. We really had to, earn our credibility in terms of having great products for the price, but also to back them up with service and a level of technology or technological expertise and understanding that would help people get the most out of subwoofers, which is where we started. Because everyone knows, placement and all these variables, how you have them set up and dialed into your system makes a huge difference. So if we weren't able to convey that knowledge and help people in their journey to having these great experiences, then I don't think we would be where we are today. So that really hasn't changed at all since the very first days of SVS. And I think it even shows up in our team. We've got, guys and girls on our team who have been with the company for the full 22 years since we were building, subwoofers in garages. And I think that's a testament to our culture and how we support each other, but also how we all sort of have this shared vision of, like, we're doing something special here. We're bucking the trend in a certain way, and we're having fun doing it, and that makes for a great company culture. And I think that sort of is conveyed outward to our community as well.
I love it. And let's just give a quick shout out. Steve up in Canada wants to know, do you ever come up to Canada to do these road shows?
So we do the Montreal Audio Fest, which is the biggest audio show in Canada. That's what we've done so far, and we'll do some things with some of our expanding dealer base up there. Typically, they're more in the training realm, but we've been looking at some consumer event opportunities with some of those retailers. So hopefully, coming soon, we'll have an announcement, because I would love to get out to Vancouver specifically if we can make a trip and do an event out there.
I love it. Nick, you talked a little bit about bringing out a really tremendous product and then using that to challenge the engineers to bring those technologies down to the lower price points. We've been really impressed with what you've done over the last year or so, because it was just about a year or so ago that you brought in the Ultra series. And we've been really impressed with that. And again, what you've done now with, SB 5000 subwoofer and the SB 17. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about, all of the changes specifically in the Ultra series of speakers, because that, it seemed to us, was a complete redesign from what you guys had before in speakers.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. And I do have a graphic that we can post up there if you'd like.
Yeah.
And, what we tried to do with the Ultra Revolution series was, top to bottom, completely reimagine what we had from our previous series. And, it started with the cabinet design. And, you can see the sort of angled front baffle. We call that acoustically centered time alignment. I don't want to lead people to believe SVS invented that. But what we did, as is sort of our MO, we brought it to a price that has not typically been available. And, by physically aligning the drivers in space in a vertical plane, you're able to ensure that the sound coming from the emanation point of each one of those drivers in the tweeter is going to reach your ear at the same instant. And that really gives you rock solid imaging, a much more better soundstage effect as well. And it's one of those things where, again, we knew we wanted to do something special just to differentiate the cabinet. And that was one of the most impactful things we could do. And then with the woofer, we do know a little bit about subwoofers. So we borrowed a little bit of technology from our 3000 micro subwoofer execution. And we have this force balance woofer array where basically the drivers are moving in and moving out together. And this gives you incredible authoritative low frequencies. And, when you look at them, a pair of towers that are towed in, you have essentially 8 woofers firing in different directions throughout the room. So you're able to get nice broad coverage, that even bass response throughout a listening area that's also got that impact and authority that I was mentioning as well. And, when you got a pair like the Pinnacles where they're 8-inch woofers and 4 of those, you can imagine it has quite a bit of low frequency output, almost to the point of not needing a subwoofer. But I would be crazy as SVS to say you'll never need one. But if there is a speaker out there where you may not, it's probably the Pinnacle. And then the last thing I'll mention is just the tweeter. This is another completely revamped design. We kept our aluminum dome tweeter, but a process called vapor deposition essentially applied a layer of industrial carbon diamond dust. And this adds significant rigidity to that tweeter without adding much mass at all. So that breakup frequency is now up around 40,000 hertz, which is even beyond the threshold of human hearing. So anyone who may perceive some harshness or fatiguing qualities from a metal dome tweeter, this really just made it much more airy, effervescent, and gives you that high quality reproduction that I think audiophiles especially really crave. So, from the woofers to the tweeters to the cabinet design, and I could keep riffing on about some of the other stuff, but I think one of the cool things we do at these events is to try to choose demo content that will emphasize or highlight these different technology advancements. So that's something folks can look forward to if they come out to the event.
Nick, you spoke very eloquently about how you changed really everything in the speakers in the Ultra series. The thing that we noticed as kind of the benefit of it is even more impressive performance when we're doing home theater demos. But beyond that, the stereo demos, the 2-channel demos that we've been doing with the Ultra series, there's clearly considerably more detail. There's less cabinet vibration. There's more ability to really hear what's going on with the music. So I think for the customers of ours who are really 2-channel fans, and again, might aspire to some of the absolute best 2-channel on the market, but it's never going to happen financially. We've really been getting some, great response from customers in the 2-channel realm.
I think that's a very salient point. And, we've heard it first person. We used to do, we still do a lot of, the consumer audio shows. And, we were often viewed as like the guilty pleasure. We'd have the full multi-channel home theater set up and, our big subwoofers going over the top with our, King Kong and Tron and all our fun demos. And then when we had the Ultra Evolution series, it was like, you know what, you're not really doing those justice as far as showcasing the refinement, everything that you were just talking about as far as what I think the hi-fi enthusiast and the audiophile crowd wants to hear. So now we either do a switching system where we can go back and forth, or we'll go and do 2 dedicated rooms to be able to really emphasize that. And even to the point of these events like we're doing with you, we now have two-channel systems, one with bookshelves, one with towers, and then one home theater, whereas we used to have 2 home theaters. So I think you nailed it right there. It was definitely one of our goals to achieve that level of respect within the hi-fi crowd. And, if you look at a lot of the reviews, Steve Guttenberg, the audiophiliac, just had one too. They're comparing us to, models that are 2, 3, 5 times as much. And we'll take that all day.
I love it. We've got a lot of comments coming in. Let me just reference a couple of them. Rob was talking about being a huge SVS fan, much to his wife's dismay every time he makes a purchase. Steve is talking about looking forward to seeing you when you come to Montreal. Ted is asking about, do you need to keep your ears level with the tweeters? Ted, I wouldn't say it exactly that way, but in general, yeah, if you can, with your seated listening position, if you either have bookshelves on a stand or towers, the idea is to keep the tweeters roughly at your ear level. That's where you really get the best, most coherent, sense of it's a stereo, not just a stereo, but it's a live performance in front of you. That will help. Maria's working out at a Y in Cleveland. Welcome, Maria. Juan says those look crazy good. I do love this graphic that you popped up here, Nick. It really does kind of make clear what you're doing with multiple drivers that are not working against each other, but working against keeping the cabinet from vibrating because they're moving in sync with each other. So yeah, that definitely helps with the clarity. We're getting customer comments like crazy. Lonnie says, hello, SVS people. Gary Gibson, cheers from Toledo, Ohio. Here's a question that will the SB17 Ultra play down to 11 hertz? And actually, you have some comments, Nick, on some of the things that were happening down south of us, right?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question here because we're very conservative in our ratings, especially with subwoofers, as far as that low frequency extension goes. We never want to overpromise and underdeliver. We'd much rather do the same. But specifically with the sealed cabinet subwoofers, there's the opportunity to take advantage of room gain, which is a phenomenon that sort of uses basically the listening space to emphasize and get you additional output as well as deeper low frequency extension. And so we actually were approached by these filmmakers in Brazil called the Abdallah brothers, and I'm trying to bring up their YouTube now, where they basically wanted to test to see just how low they could get one of our subwoofers to go. And they pulled out some magic tricks, I will say. So it wasn't just all about let's throw the subwoofers in the middle of a room and turn them up loud and see what they can do. They actually used what are called these transducers. They call them audio dynamic passive transducer wall panels. And these are basically a technology that utilizes damped sympathetic resonance to mitigate standing waves in room modes. And if you ask me to explain that, then you're not going to get a very good answer. But ultimately, the end result was they were able to achieve extension down to 5 hertz, like usable extension down to 5 hertz with the SB17 Ultra Revolution subwoofers. So you can actually find these videos on YouTube where they were basically talking all about how they set up the room, what they did to basically create the scenario where they're able to take a subwoofer that's normally rated down to about 14, 15 hertz and get it to achieve 5 hertz in terms of low frequency extension. So for us, it was kind of came out of the blue. They're like, oh, we're building a reference theater. Will you work with us and provide us for a few subs so we can get this test going? And ultimately, they wanted to prove that, the subwoofers rated specs aren't always what you have to default to. And so, Joe, I apologize. That was a ridiculously long answer to a very short question. But it does sort of, it's an interesting project that I had no idea what they were trying to achieve. But once they sent me the final video, I'm like, oh, wow, like we'll talk about this. So it was a fun project to be a part of.
Yeah, really, they were trying to take the room out of the equation. Certainly, we can say, and I think every subwoofer manufacturer would agree, that one of the biggest limiting factors with bass, with subwoofers, is not simply the sub itself, but the room, because rooms are always going to provide a certain amount of cancellation and so forth. And, one of the things that you guys have done a great job is offering bundles of, buying twin subwoofers, because no matter how great any particular subwoofer is, if it's sort of in the wrong position relative to my seated listening position, then I'm not going to hear anywhere near the bass performance that sub is capable of. And with multiple subs, 4 is even better than 2, but 2 is oftentimes, much, much better than a single. You can get more even bass coverage and better performance really at multiple spots throughout the room. So great one. And I want to just take we're getting so many comments coming in. Hello from Yulee, Florida. I live like 10 minutes from there. How soon till you have a center channel designed to match the design layout of the Ultra Evolution towers? I know, Nick, probably like most manufacturers, you never want to speak too far in advance of what's happening with product development, but just
So we
knowing
do,
that.
I mean, we do have an Ultra Evolution center channel. And as far as I know, there's no immediate plans to, make any revamps to that. It's a very capable 3-way center channel. It has better output, better dispersion characteristics than the original Ultra series. Although if you have the original Ultra series, they are timbre matched, so you can certainly use it. But it was, it's definitely a very capable, even for like large listening areas. We did a ballroom as part of this film festival, and had a single one of our center channels, providing all that front channel, center channel information for this ballroom. So I would encourage you to give it a test, and if it's not enough for you, then you can always use a bookshelf or a tower in the center as well if you have the ability.
Yep. And Juan says, I wish you made clear speakers. Juan, I can comment on this one. When I was during my time at Velodyne, we actually would always bring a clear subwoofer to the shows, and people said, "Oh, I'd like to buy that," but acoustically, it never works out right. A part of getting that true deep bass extension is making sure that the cabinet itself is rock solid, and it's really hard to do that with those materials. We're getting closer to our 6 o'clock wrap up time. So Charlie, Nick, if you can take down the video, and Charlie, if you don't mind putting up the QR code. Nick, you guys have been generous enough to offer up a wireless system for some one of our lucky viewers. So if Charlie can bring up the QR code, then you guys can actually, click onto the QR and you'll be able, there it is. Thank you, Charlie. We appreciate it. You guys will be able to actually register for the drawing that we're going to do. So glad to have that up. And a couple more shout outs, Nick. Hello from Aspen Hill, Maryland. See you next Tuesday, Nick. Yeah, love it. Hello from New Orleans. Man, we're getting people from all over and all over the world, really. Arthur says, thank you for answering my question. Glad to. If you had 2 subs, Alex says, would you do one up front and one in the back, or both up front? Nick, I'll ask you your opinion, but mine real quickly is, once you've got twin subs, what you really want to do is experiment a little bit if you can, because sometimes the room layout mandates, no, they would have to go up here in the front, kind of on either side of maybe the piece of furniture you've got up there, something like that. But if you can, experiment a little bit, because eventually you'll hit a point where you realize, oh man, the subs sound fantastic there. Nick, your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I know people love that whole, it depends, but this is really a case where, like you said, it's about your room layout, where your seating position is. And, if you're looking for a baseline, a lot of times our support team will recommend, and I know it doesn't appeal to those audiophiles who are really about symmetry, but opposing corners can often be the best way to get that even bass response, or opposing sidewalls. Like, everyone wants them right in the front, either inside or outside the main left and right on the, flanking the center. But room acoustics generally will tell you that is not ideal. So certainly, you can get a better performance by having 2 subwoofers as opposed to 1 and put them anywhere. But, it's those opposing corners or dueling sidewalls, we found generally is a rule of thumb, a great place to start.
Love it. Nick, when we were warming up for tonight's show, you reminded me that we don't talk about music often enough, and you either have seen recently or are going to see some pretty cool music.
Yes. We lost Joe. Looks like I'm taking over. All right. SVS takeover. Love it. Yeah, we went to a couple recent concerts here in the New England area. I got to see Wu-Tang Clan and their farewell tour at TD Bank North Garden. And, that was a great experience. And typically, hip hop is not very conducive to large venues. And I would say in general that was the case here, but it was a lot of fun, a lot of energy, and a lot of great people watching too. And then I also got to see the Lumineers at Fenway Park. And having seen the Red Hot Chili Peppers there previously, whatever the Lumineers did to acoustically treat Fenway Park, they did an amazing job, because when the Chili Peppers were there, they were using the Green Monster as sort of like a backdrop. And I thought it was like really echoey, and there wasn't a lot of precision to the sound. You couldn't hear Flea and the bass and the instrumentals as well. But by having all these sort of acoustically treated panels all around the stage, I thought it was just a wonderful audio representation of the Lumineers. And then they also played some some good covers as well, which I always love. And first day of their tour in Fenway, they really personalized it, so that was great. And then I'm going, anybody from New Hampshire, I'm going up to Guilford tomorrow. One of my wife's favorite bands, Dave Matthews Band, will be playing a set there. And to me, they're just like one of those quintessential like summer rock experiences. It's just a jam band. They're just going and they'll play, you know, saxophone solos or drum solos, and you can really get into the vibe of summer by going to a Dave Matthews show. And I used to go to them in high school. I think I saw 3 while I was in high school, and those were some of my earliest concerts experience. So I have a little nostalgia from them as well. And then the last one I'll mention was I went to this concert for a Pink Floyd cover band called Brit Floyd. And I went into it thinking, you know, like cover band, you know, how good is it going to be? If you closed your eyes, and it was in this venue called the Vet in Providence, which is an amazingly treated theater experience, it was just killer. Like I could close my eyes and I swear I was hearing David Gilmour, and it was just like above and beyond what I had expected. So Brit Floyd, I think they're known as one of the better Pink Floyd cover bands, and they just absolutely nailed it as far as, you know, every song they played. I felt like I was at an original Pink Floyd concert, almost to the extent where I was like, I don't even need to see them because I can't imagine real Pink Floyd would sound as good as these guys given their age and everything. So I know Joe has gotten some battery issues, so he'll be back in a minute, and I'm just going to keep rolling here. And I'm going to go into some of what I would call my favorite infrasonic bass demos. And a lot of people use the term subsonic, but infrasonic is actually the technical term for where you can hear and feel the bass, like that below 20 hertz range. And, you know, there's a funny anecdote about this British engineer. His name was Vic Tandy. And it was, you know, in the early 80s, I believe. And he was having, you know, a late night working session, and he had just had this sense of like dread come over him, and he was feeling, you know, getting sweats and feeling depressed, and he couldn't explain what it was because he was in great health. Well, it turns out there was actually an extractor fan that had been installed in his office or his workspace recently, and it was producing a constant 19 hertz infrasonic sort of sound. And it's actually been proven that those infrasonic frequencies can create that sort of emotional reaction where you're not actually perceiving it necessarily with your hearing, but it's affecting you emotionally, and it can actually affect you physically. And I think now that, you know, movie producers and musicians have sort of understood what kind of effect those infrasonic frequencies can have, they're really taking advantage of them. And a lot of times horror movies will use this to in a great way, because you kind of don't even hear what's going to happen, but it just sort of catches you off guard because you're having this feeling of like existential dread just from the sonic qualities that your subwoofer is producing. But obviously you need a subwoofer that can produce those infrasonics, which all SVS subwoofers other than the micro, which gets down right about 220 hertz, are able to achieve that. So, you know, it's that's right. Symphonics audio music touches you. That's literally it. It's music and it's movies and content that touches you. And I do see a couple questions here about a sound bar. I will say not immediately, but we do have something on the roadmap. So I would say 2026 will be a good year for an SVS soundbar. So if you can hold off that long, then I strongly encourage you to do so. But we do have something like that on our roadmap. So stay tuned for that. I guess that's a world exclusive here, although I have spilled the beans on that ones before as well. GK Scott's asking if we're doing any demos in the Boston area. You know what? New England is the #1 place where we get requested to do an event. We do have a dealer up in New Hampshire who's got a good showroom that we could potentially do something in, but I'd love to be able to bring it closer to Boston. There's another dealer in Braintree, which is just south of the city, that we're looking at as well. So GK, if you have a dealer, if you have somebody that you like to visit, let them know that you want them to start representing SVS, and that'll make it a lot easier for us, because we always like to have great partners like Gramophone who can give us a nice venue and help do some of the heavy lifting of setting up for these events as well. So the QR code is to the top left. What we're giving away is our Prime Wireless Pro powered speaker system. And Charlie, I do have an image there if you wanted to pop that up as well of these beautiful speakers. What we have here is a powered bookshelf speaker pair. It's a 200-watt amplifier, and that's a 50-watt times 4, so that each tweeter and midwoofer gets 50 watts of discrete power. So these things can really pump. And they are rear ported, so you get significant low frequency extension down to about 33, 34 hertz. Streaming, pretty much everything you'd need as far as a streaming goes. AirPlay 2, Chromecast, Bluetooth with aptX, Wi-Fi as well if you want to get full lossless streaming to them. There's hardwire connections for HDMI, so great soundbar replacement if you wanted to hit them directly to your TV. Got HDMI with eARC, so you can control it from volume and some other things from the remote for your TV. And then optical, as well as, I mean, come on, you got to have a subwoofer output. We are SVS after all. And then line level as well if you wanted to connect to, secondary components. So these are really, a phenomenal 2-channel wireless hi-fi system. Literally just add a smartphone and you got everything you need to build a great either soundbar replacement or legit 2-channel system. And that will definitely make you happy when it comes to listening session time. I see a question about the auto calibration. It's coming soon. I wish I had a specific date. If I had to throw something out, I would say within the next 2 months. We are right there. But if we've learned something in the last 6 months or so, it's that people are very unforgiving of a faulty or not perfect app experience. And so we are working very tirelessly to get the whole process of running the auto EQ completely bulletproof. So when it finally reaches your hands, you don't have to think about anything. And just one of the things that I think might interest folks is that, as part of this, we're allowing you to have the option of using your smartphone microphone or an external microphone that we're actually manufacturing as well. But with these smartphone microphones, specifically with Android devices, I mean, there's so many different models of Android phone, and a lot of them use very different microphones. So as part of the calibration process, you're going to do a near field measurement with your smartphone. Specifically, this will benefit the Androids more because Apples are much more consistent, but the system will calibrate based on the quality or the type of microphone in your device. So you'll be able to get that much more accurate of a correction from our auto EQ. And that was a huge part of this, is like, you can't leave anything to chance, because the worst thing you can do is have an auto EQ that doesn't actually improve the sound. And so we're very cognizant of making sure we're thinking of all the variables. And one of those would be the calibrating the microphone itself in your phone to make sure it's going to make the most accurate measurements based on its own limitations. So you're always going to get better results with the external microphone, but you will have a better experience by having this calibration with your smartphone. I see Dave Phoebus is asking about in-walls. We do have an in-wall subwoofer. We do not currently have in-wall speakers. It's not something that we're going to have immediately in the near future, but certainly we get a lot of requests for that. But you can currently get an in-wall subwoofer from SVS that's got dual 9s. It's got about a 800 watt RMS, close to 2,700 watt peak power amplifier. So a beast for what an in-wall subwoofer can do. And it's great too, because you can actually retrofit it in. It's a fully enclosed unit. We've had people put them in couches. We've had people put them overhead. And so it's a very versatile solution when it comes to in-wall subs, because it's got a fully enclosed sealed cabinet with it. So you don't need to have that back box in order to have it run at its ultimate efficiency and to be able to perform well. So, hey, there he is.
Sorry about that, Nick. I didn't mean to.
You're good. Yeah. My tap dancing shoes on. I'm feeling all right.
You're a true pro. Thank you very much for stepping up to the plate.
I almost got into my Infrasonic demos, but I got sidetracked by a couple questions. So, we might have to do a part 2 where I share some of my favorite Infrasonic home theater demos, or just come out to Columbia and we'll have some of them to demo.
Yeah, we've had several people already comment that they're going to see us next week, which is always really exciting. And of course, half the reason, Nick, why these things are fun to do is because people start popping questions in, because, it's nice to be able to talk directly to the consumers. And if somebody's got a question, someone else in the audience also has it too, right?
No doubt. We've learned that from our live streams that, we'll see people complimenting the questions from other people because like, I didn't even know I should ask that, but now I know the answer. And it's a great resource to be able to just share knowledge like that.
Hey, one thing I wanted to ask you, if you haven't actually covered this during the time that I was out for technical reasons, you talk oftentimes about the signs that it might be time to upgrade your subwoofer. Have you discussed that at all?
I did not get into that, but I think that's a great place for us to sort of segue here, because it's it's one of those things where I think there's certain things that I think are kind of obvious when you're talking about upgrading a subwoofer. It's like, well, can it reach those infrasonic frequencies I was just talking about? Can it hit below the threshold of human hearing where you're actually just feeling it? And a lot of times you won't know. Like, you'll just never know because you don't know if the content has it in it. But if you look for content that actually has that level of bass you can feel, then it's very easy to be able to tell if your subwoofer can hit those notes, because a lot of times it'll make sounds that are unnatural to what is in the content. And there's some crass terms that people use for what those sounds are, but it's not pleasant, and you'll know that is not what's in the source material. So one would be, can it hit those infrasonics? Because again, that is so much of what a subwoofer is about, versus what speakers, which almost, even the most expensive full range speakers are not going to reach very deep below 20 hertz with any meaningful output. The second one would be, this is about the tractor pull, but can it play as loud as you want without distorting? Can it really hit those peak cinematic moments when you need them most? Or is it sort of faltering or clipping when it gets to that moment where it really needs to step up and absolutely rock your room and pressurize a space? So, can it play as low as you want, and can you play as loud as you want? And then after that, it gets a little bit more nuanced. I think one of the most underrated qualities of a SVS subwoofer, it's the accuracy and frequency response. Not only in terms of, is it playing the right note, the right tonality, and conveying what the artist or the director intended, but is it playing it at the right volume? Because you'll find a lot of cheaper subwoofers will really emphasize that mid bass, and so it'll have this sort of like boominess when you get into that 50 to 45, that sort of range, and then when it hits the lows or it hits the upper bass regions, it sort of just disappears. And so the accuracy in terms of its frequency response, but also the volume levels and the output at those frequencies is a critical component of having a great subwoofer. And if your sub is not doing that, maybe time for an upgrade. One other one is the transient response. And that's, essentially speaking to how quickly it can stop and start on a dime. And more importantly, how quickly it can stop on a dime. It takes a significant amount of force to move the driver to move air, but to get it to stop and not have that sort of bloated overhang boominess, that's a critical component, especially for hi-fi enthusiasts who are listening to music styles that really value that snappiness of a pluck of a bass guitar string, or the punch of a timpani, things like that. Those are incredibly important, and the transient response of a subwoofer really is what is important there. So if you notice your subwoofer sort of blurring or smearing the content, maybe time for an upgrade. And then the last one is just the blending with your speakers. Like, your subwoofer should not sound like it's coming from that place in the room. And, depending on whether you're using DSP or if you're able to place it in the right location, it should sound like it's creating bass for the entire system if it's a home theater, or really just an omnidirectional experience. So it's being conveyed evenly throughout the listening space, and it sounds like a natural extension of the speaker. So if it's like, oh, I hear the sub and I hear my speakers and they're just completely out of mesh, then it may be time for an upgrade to find a better blending subwoofer. So there's my 5 things you might want to listen for when you're deciding if you need a new sub.
Yeah, you did a really good job summarizing all that, Nick. And at the beginning, I think you were talking about there are some obvious signs. If your sub is making rattling noises, or you're just not able to, really get the kind of output you want, that can be very obvious. But another thing that is, I think, equally important is, are you really getting the note definition and so forth? Because when people talk about wanting a fast sub, sometimes, what it sounds like they mean is the woofer responding quickly. But what you really want that woofer to do is make that note, that first note, and stop, so it can make the second note without, still being moving back and forth. And now it's trying to also do the second note at the same time. And boy, when you hear a really high quality sub that's not straining to make those bass notes, you really know it, right?
Yeah, it's almost counterintuitive. It's like, if the sub is doing its job perfectly, you shouldn't really even know it's there. It's just like, holy goodness, my speakers sound so much better, and there's so much more, energy in the room. And that's really not just that you've chosen a good subwoofer, but that you've got it dialed in, perfectly to be able to get that experience.
Yep. Do you want to share maybe a few of your tracks that you've been using lately to show off what really good bass is all about? Is that something you can do?
Yeah, absolutely. I am going to address a question here. This is a good one from GK Scott about rule of thumb for placing 2 Ultra Evolution elevations. Those are our Atmos speakers, typically what they're used for the best Dolby Atmos experience. And I'm actually going to go and just scroll up here a little bit. So you can see I have elevation speakers on my ceiling, just a single pair, and I have them angled towards the listening area, but directly overhead. So this to me, by having a single pair, was the best execution, because I didn't want them too close to being directly over the listening area to provide some continuity from the front to rear stage. But I've also seen people put them, angled down from the rear of the room and the front of the room. We've had people have high on sidewalls angled down. That's how we typically do it in hotel rooms and some of our demo experiences, to put them on the sidewalls, angled down, and that again fills that space from front to rear. So one of the beauties is with the bracket that we sell with them, you give a ton of versatility in terms of whether you want to place them on a ceiling, on a sidewall. So it kind of depends on what your room is. But an ideal scenario, I would say, is if your seating is in the middle of the room and you can have one pair slightly in front of it on the ceiling, one pair slightly behind it on a ceiling, you're going to get even better response than you would get from in ceilings, just because they're much closer to a full range speaker than what you would get from a typical in ceiling. Now, as far as infrasonic bass demos, I think the first one's probably the most obvious. Edge of Tomorrow, that first sequence, goes down to about 9 hertz. And I've seen YouTube videos where people use this as a subwoofer destroyer, a true torture track, to see if they can literally rip the driver from its surround. And, nobody's done that to an SVS sub yet, but I'll encourage you to try. Go ahead, try it out. We've done it at some of our events, so who am I to stop you? Both Dunes with the sandworm and the ornithopter, I think is how I pronounce it. Those scenes have some great infrasonics. Interstellar with the black hole sequences. Dark Knight Rises, the Tom Hardy one, I think, where the stadium collapses in Heinz Field. That's got some great infrasonics in it. Blade Runner 2049, the opening scene, is a great one. The Tenet plane crash scene, one of my all-time favorites. That whole movie's a bit of a mind F, and you can watch it multiple times and keep pulling more out of it. But that's a great one. Transformers Dark of the Moon, the space bridge sequence, is one that we've used in some of our demos before. U571, anytime you get a submarine with depth charges, you can guess there's going to be some infrasonics there as well. And let's see, let me get one more here. The Batman, that Batmobile car chase where the Penguin is going after him, and you get these trucks that are releasing big debris all over the place and crashing. That one's got some good feels to it as well. And I think the most recent Kong versus Godzilla has a great one when they're battling on the 2 ships there for the first time they meet. And then my deep track cut would be Hellboy 2, which is actually a very underrated movie as far as superheroes go. I love Hellboy. The Golden Army, there's what's called the Elemental Battle, and that's got some great infrasonics too there. So you can go out and put your subwoofer to the test and find out if it's time for an upgrade with some of those demo recommendations.
Nick, it seems to me as you were describing these movies that you've been using, that you're actually having a lot of fun listening to them. Is this hobby supposed to be all about fun?
Well, whoever's not doing it that way is not doing it right, because honestly, like I have conversations with people at the live events and even through some of our social media, and it's like the one part of the hobby is the building of the system and having fun tweaking and getting all the things right. Yep. But if you obsess over just that part and you never actually get down to like, all right, let's watch Kong fight Godzilla, then like, come on. So I always try to bring it back there. And again, with some of our demos, it's always about like, here's a cool story about technology in the tweeter. Now we're going to put it to test with this, track from a 16-year-old who's singing, with the highest voice you've ever heard, or Jeff Castellucci with the deepest voice in the Guinness Book of World Records to show the natural tonality of woofer. It's always fun when you make that connection from the content to the technology, because it really does bring it full circle.
Yeah, I was many years ago at retail before we were smart enough to bring audio and video together into home theater systems. We really were just selling 2-channel systems, and a customer, was really kind of going through, almost agonizing a little bit over some of the details of his system, and he left. And a more experienced, older salesman turned to me and said, the best thing that guy could do would be to sell everything he's got, get $1,000 stereo, and take the money left over and buy about 500 records and just go have fun with it.
That is a great, yeah.
It's really all about the music and the movies, right? And enjoying that experience.
Yeah, and one of the greatest compliments I ever got, it was from somebody coming in at one of our shows, and he had just listened to a system that was something like $750,000, and he's like, you know what? I heard this track on this $750,000 system. You guys got a $5,000 pair of speakers. Just put it on. I got no expectations. And so, he sat there, didn't have much of a reaction, and then he's like, well, can you play this track? And then, we played probably 5 or 6 tracks, and he's like, well, the only thing I can tell you is that as much as I enjoyed that really expensive system, like, these speakers are just addictive. Like, I want to keep listening to more of these tracks because I'm hearing things I've never heard before. And I thought that term addictive, was a very apt way of sort of summarizing what great audio should be. It's like, it doesn't want to let you go, and you don't want to let it go. You just want to keep churning in new things to be like, holy crap, there's a new detail I never knew was there. And that's part of the journey too, with the gear part, because it's like, how much more can I get out of it? But I think when you can, get yourself to just put yourself in a headspace and enjoy the content and everything that you've created, you can stop obsessing at least for an hour and a half about, the gear upgrades and tweaking settings and things like that.
Yeah, man, it is all about having fun. I always kind of feel like when I read the reviewers in some of the audiophile magazines, when they say, I was really upset about having to pack this product up and send it back to the manufacturer. I do reviews obviously on YouTube, but we've got all these products here in the store. And if you're a reviewer for a magazine, you don't have the luxury of having all these products. And so, yeah, I mean, I really feel like the reviewer is being sincere when he talks about, man, I didn't want to have to pack this thing up and send it back to SVS. I wanted just to keep enjoying it,
Well, sometimes they're like, do you mind if I use these as my new reference? I'll be making lots of comparisons. There'll be more videos. And so there's always a conversation to be had. But we, just to be clear, we do not trade products for reviews. So that is not something we do. But it is always a conversation when it gets to the end and they're like, yeah, I think I found my new reference. So, what's it going to take? And, we have fun with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Nick, as we're starting to wrap this up, a couple of things. I want to just remind everybody that, again, if you're anywhere near Maryland, we'd hope to see you a week from tonight, 6 p.m. at our Columbia store. Second thing is, before we start talking about the drawing and the QR code and so forth, if you can, you've got something really cool going on as a company that I think of as an extension of the way that you think about customer service, and that it's not just all about selling more product. It's about taking care of people either when they're considering SVS or once they've purchased SVS. And that's the Washington Modern Warrior Project is the first of the two, because that's really just a little bit south of us here. We're in Baltimore, Maryland, so Washington, D.C. is just south of us. Can you share a little bit about that, Nick?
Yeah, I'd love to. This is one of the things that it's meaningful to us, because every company wants to feel like they're doing good for humanity, and while letting people hear things they've never heard before is doing good for humanity, there's always another step you can take. So this Modern Warrior Project we did in conjunction with what's called the Washington Performing Arts, which supports a lot of cultural initiatives in the DC area, and our president Gary's from that area too. And essentially it ties music to to veterans who are recovering from PTSD, and sort of finding ways to help help them through that with music. And so we've done a lot to support that, both in some of the events and fundraising that we've done, but really just trying to help support some of these nonprofit organizations that are using music to really help folks coming back and who have trauma. And it's been really impactful, I think, from seeing how the programs have progressed and how people have really been helped out, with I guess, for lack of a better term, musical therapy. It's interesting the way that they go about it, but it really has been an effective way for us to support some of the veterans. And we have veterans who work for us, and a lot of veterans in our community. So it's just one small way we do it. And then another thing we've done is support local classrooms, music programs that are underfunded. a lot of them have, really bad or no sound systems at all. And they're trying to teach these kids about music and how instruments and voices are supposed to sound and how songs are supposed to be rendered. And so we've donated Prime Wireless Pro units, which we're giving away tonight, to dozens of local DC area and other schools in the greater area to just have them do better in terms of the sound quality that they're presenting in their classrooms. And there's some videos that they posted were so cool, seeing the teachers, how positively they reacted, and the students, even there was one about like a didgeridoo. It's like they were playing it on like this little Bluetooth pod, and they were trying to teach them about different music from around the world, and it just sounded like this muddled mess. And she's like, I busted it out on the Prime Wireless Pro, and it was like everyone's jaw just sort of opened. And I don't know that anyone's going to become a didgeridoo, concert player, but it's one step closer to helping these people realize, maybe what their dream is in pursuing music, by giving them a sense for, what it means to have an accurate frequency response, or what real bass is, or, what clarity in terms of vocal tonality and things like that. And, it's just one of those things where we don't talk a ton about it, but since you gave me a platform, it's something that I really love seeing come out of the work that I do, is these programs that we're supporting, not only underfunded schools, but veterans, and hopefully some additional initiatives as we move forward in the next year or so.
I'm so glad you talked about it, Nick. When we were discussing a few things earlier today, and you mentioned it, the immediate thought that came into my head is this desire to help, to give back, is really just an extension of how SVS looks at taking care of consumers. And I get a ton of enjoyment, obviously, out of the music, which is my hobby too, and the movies. But, being able to have people who are asking questions, and hopefully you feel like you're helping them, it's just really, it gives you a good feeling when you're doing it. There's a YouTube video out there with John McLaughlin, the guitar player from the Mahavishnu Orchestra. John McLaughlin, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's talking about, in this video, about how music is a universal language. It doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak. When you hear good music, it does connect with your soul, right?
Absolutely. And when you hear it precisely as the artist intended you to hear it, it just becomes that much more impactful, because you can more readily make that emotional connection. And I think a lot of these programs are meant to inspire these kids who, may not have a lot of opportunity to really think about this as a serious, next step in their life, is, what can I do with music, whether it's, performing, engineering, or even being like a DJ. Like there's so many different callings that can bring you into the world of music. But a lot of times it just starts with understanding that, there is this sense of sound quality and appreciation of sound itself that really can, ignite that passion.
I love it. Nick, I can't see the comments now. Are there any last minute comments or questions that you want to take from what people are commenting before we start to wrap up?
So somebody did ask, what is this event on the 29th? He's 20 minutes from the Columbia Score. Dave P., you be there at 6 p.m. and you can find out. We're going to be giving away a $10,000 system, as well as a subwoofer and another pair of the Prime Wireless Pro for anybody who is not going to be able to make it to Columbia, Maryland. SVS also does live stream the event, and we will have, wait for it, more giveaways for the virtual crowd as well. So if you're tuning into our SVS YouTube or Facebook from 6 to 8 p.m. next Tuesday, July 29th, you'll be able to see the actual event secondhand. Can't promise it's going to sound as good, because you'll be listening on headphones or whatever speakers you have at home, and it'll be being conveyed through my smartphone mic. But you'll at least be able to get a sense for how we like to run these events and how much fun they are. But Dave, it sounds like 20 minutes. You should be able to make it to the Columbia Store at 6 p.m. next Tuesday. So I encourage anyone who's tuning in to come out and hang out with Joe and I and some of the SVS team as well. And thank you for all the comments about people who are past veterans. I appreciate the sacrifices that you've all made, and the same thing with the schools. Yeah, it stinks when teachers have to pay for their own gear, and to see the gratitude that they had on their faces getting these hi-fi systems really brought a smile to my face as well. So. And also thank you for all the recommendations for movies. I got like 10 more movie recommendations now I got to add to our list here. So you guys are active and really making this a fun event tonight.
Yeah, we got to scribble those down, Nick, because new demo material, fresh demo material is always a lot of fun. For those in the audience who want to be able to sign up for our event next Tuesday, just go to gramophone.com and you'll easily see the link where you can register yourself. That really does help us, of course, in terms of planning for how many people will be there. And while you were talking there a moment ago, Nick, you made me think of a moment during last year's event where, and again, this was the first time we had been able to experience an SVS event, but I think maybe it was Larry who was running the home theater portion of it. And I just finished chatting with a customer a little bit, and he put on some demo material. I have no idea right now what it was, but it just brought a smile to my face because the system was rocking. I thought,
yeah,
man, I got to get that for demo. Whatever it
was. It sounds like it could have been Ninja Turtles. That's sort of his forte, but that is one where like Gary, our CEO, like covers his ears and runs in the other room, and Larry's like, "Oh, everyone, gather around, we're gonna fire up." So it's sort of his calling card, I guess you could say. But we got a ton of content that we can play with a lot of what I mentioned as well. So we'll be having a lot of fun playing 2-channel and home theater demos at the event next Tuesday.
I love it. Well, as we wrap up here, I think, again, Charlie was kind enough to put up the little QR code. So please feel free to register. Within the next couple of weeks, we will have been able to see all the people that have signed up for tonight's giveaway. Again, we just love it that you're giving away a pair of the Prime Wireless Pro speakers because I think I've mentioned this to you before, Nick, but that was actually the very first product 2 summers ago when we took on SVS. I don't know why that was the first one, but we got our initial shipment of products, and it was the first one that one of our sales guys grabbed and just kind of put on the shelf. And we were playing it, and we were just kind of amazed at what a value it seemed like, because we, of course, had other wireless systems, in the store that we'd been selling and having a lot of success with, actually. And yeah, we were all just kind of standing there looking at how are they getting that much deep bass out of these little speakers? And as you know, again, a wireless system can just be a whole lot of fun to use.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think it's part of our evolution as a brand as well. We're entering these new categories. I still think we're still outgrowing the fact that, they're a subwoofer company, but you got your wireless audio. Some of the most popular products that Gramophone sells are wireless adapters and subwoofer isolation systems. So we have a very active accessory and cable product selection as well. And then, we talked about the speakers. So, hey, you're welcome to look at us as the subwoofer company, but we're also a full-fledged audio brand, and we're going to keep growing upon that as we go deeper into our history.
Love it, Nick. You guys are in a period where you're releasing new products, over the last, I guess, really starting about 15 or so months ago, but you're releasing new products at a really strong rate. And we love that because we love, being able to talk to our customers about the new products, but we also know it's bringing great benefits to SVS. And, we want all of our vendors to keep growing and thriving. So, Nick, just to wrap this all up, I so much get a kick out of working with you. Thank you for making time for us tonight. I really appreciate you coming on board.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks again to all the commenters. I look forward to seeing some of you next week, and I look forward to doing this again too with you, Joe.
That's right. And again, to all those who commented, but just to all those who joined us tonight, even for a little while, to be able to be a part of this, we're so glad that you joined us. We know you've got lots going on in your life, and to take a little time for Nick and myself, it's really appreciated. Quick shout out to Charlie, who ran the back end of this whole thing this evening, just all by himself. Thank you, Charlie, for your hard work. We look forward to seeing as many of you as possible next Tuesday night in Columbia, Maryland. And for the rest of you, we look forward to seeing you at our next video content that we'll be posting on YouTube. So thanks again to all of you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening, and play some music loud tonight.
Yeah. Happy listening, everybody.